that would be organic, meaning it's carbon-based. It's a foodstuff. What other kind of foodstuffs do we take in besides sugar? Huh? And what else?
Protein.
Our protein and our fats. So carbs, proteins, fats. All right? And how does the body want to use them to get energy? What does it want to use first? Did we talk about that? I got to remember, I got 141 and 142, so I don't ever remember, so that's why I have to ask. Did we talk about that? Carbs first, fats second, proteins last. You do not want your body using proteins at all for energy, if you can help it. Okay? So carbs first, fats second. So the other organic fuels glucocorticoids can work on is hopefully going to be the fatty acids and not proteins, but it could be proteins because they're organic, because organic meaning carbon-based, and all of these have carbon backbone. Does that make sense?
So it's actually for the basic energy for the body. That's what it needs. The first carbs, then fats, then proteins.
Yep. That's the way the body wants to get the majority of its energy. So when you take in a balanced diet, the way that the body will burn it is first, it'll use whatever carbs you gave it. Second, it'll turn to fatty acids if needed. The last thing you want it to do is burn proteins, because when you take in proteins in your diet, as they go through the digestive process and get broken down, they get broken down to their component parts, which is an amino acid. You want those amino acids to go into a cell so the cell can build its product, which is a protein. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The inner layer are the sex steroids. So the reticularis, RS, the sex steroids. They are going to be glucocorticoids and androgens, and their goal, developmental, okay, meaning as organisms form, and reproductive, once we get to puberty, for example, okay? So that's those three layers of that adrenal gland and the cortex portion. So that cortex portion, we tend to think of the adrenal gland in relationship to the sympathetic division, that epinephrine, okay? But this outer layer for this endocrine system is extremely important, from those three layers and their products. Now that one that I didn't quite go over, aldosterone. Which one was that the most important from? Glomerulosa. Aldosterone. Kent and Nicole, Autumn, have y'all dealt with any of this in your world experience?
A little bit, but not like this deep as far as other than if a patient is on like dialysis and they're pregnant, and we have to figure out that way.
Okay, so have you ever heard like any of the doctors or whatever talk about Ra, the renin? Okay. That's what this is part of. All right. Aldosterone deals with blood pressure. Now, quite a few times now, I have mentioned something with these hormones and blood pressure.
So that's the same thing when a pregnant, like when the moms develop high blood pressure soon as their water breaks. And usually they say that the aldosterone is the cause of it, but they can't explain why that's the cause of it.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Because this hormone, this raw system, this RAA, it's called the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. Holy cow. What did I just tell you guys? Okay, I don't either. No, joking. I always have to stop myself and be like, what? Huh? Okay, all right, hold up. Let me think about this for a second. All right, because I do, okay? But now, blood pressure. Why do I need my body to balance blood pressure? Well, it's definitely on a pump system, okay? And the moving, okay, of that fluid.
So don't if the pressure builds up too high, it'll clot.
Not so much clotting, only if something is going wrong with clotting factors, okay? If something is going wrong with clotting factors, that can affect blood pressure levels. People usually end up having something such as a blood clot somewhere. They may have like the abdominal or leg or something to that effect.
This lady, her blood pressure got like really, really high, and she went into a stroke. And they said that because I said, well, what did that have to do with each other? And they said because the blood pressure was that high, it started to clot.
It is brain.
And so I was like, okay.
And caused that vascular incident.
Okay.
That's usually how they refer to it. Now, blood pressure. All right, I mean, okay, at this point in time, I kind of like the fact my heart works. Okay? Anybody in here disagree? All right. The heart itself is muscle. Cardiac muscle. Remember, we've got 3 types: smooth, skeletal, cardiac. Okay? The heart itself, all right, pressures exist. All right, so we have to have blood return to the right side of the heart, go from there to the lungs, from the lungs back to the left side of the heart, where it gets to leave, go back to the arteries, and we start the process all over again. Okay? Blood pressure, which they, meaning somebody somewhere, says that blood pressure should be the 120/80. Do y'all have any clue what that means? Nicole?
Like the pressure it takes through the blood through your heart, through your whole body, down to your extremities, back up.
Yeah. It's talking about the pressure of the blood from the left side through arteries. But what does 120/80 mean?
Is it the pressure that comes in goes out from the arteries?
I believe it's the pressure of that your blood, like your heart, puts on your arterial walls during the heartbeat is the top number, and then the bottom is like the constant pressure.
And Nicole?
Yeah, the bottom is again, how much it takes to get back up, all the way back up to the mark. Travel.
It's telling you a number, giving us the amount of pressure of the blood leaving the heart based on millimeters of mercury. Are you familiar with mercury? It's a heavy metal. And in some cases, now, when you go into a doctor's office, you'll see a little thing connected to their blood pressure machine. Looks almost like a thermometer, and it's got a little mercury in it. Okay? That means that that amount of pressure leaving the heart can move that heavy metal 120 millimeters up that tube. Now, if you know anything about the weight of mercury, that is extreme pressure on these organs. Okay? Now, what happens if the reverse occurs? Why?
You don't have enough pressure and blood flow to the organ or to keep functioning.
If I don't have enough blood flow to tissues of my body, the tissues begin to die. Why? I am not getting any oxygen or nutrients to those tissues, and I'm not getting rid of any waste.
I just had this happen to a patient on the weekend. I literally, this just happened to a patient. And his
The blood pressure dropped too low.
And he went to my circulation. I had to send him up. Yeah, but it just,
That means most likely that he had probably not had proper blood flow for quite a while. Yeah.
he has psychotic episodes. And he didn't sleep like 5 days by the time I got.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just dealing with the.
So, blood pressure is important. Of course, we tend to hear about blood pressure in relationship to things being too high, okay? But there are times that blood pressure drops, okay? Like I mentioned earlier, there could be trauma, okay? There could be severe shock, okay? There could be reasons that a blood pressure drops. Located in our arteries that are coming off of the heart, and just as we, excuse me, as we begin to branch, we have what's termed baroreceptors. They are picking up on the stretch that's occurring. What they'll do is if that pressure, okay, which would create a stretch, all right, if we don't have enough occurring, it will say, oops, okay, blood pressure's too low, which means it's not going to be at a good pressure to get to the other tissues of the body to keep